What is going on, you guys? Today I have another quick episode for you. This is from Rob Lipsett's podcast, and this episode is with Jack Hopkins, the guy he's interviewing, and it's called Roadmap to a Better Life. So Jack Hopkins is a young guy who basically left the UK, started an online business, went through the troubles, the trials and tribulations to make it work. And so he has successfully been living in Bangkok, Thailand for a while, or different parts of Thailand, and then also is now living in Dubai as well. So obviously he's doing pretty well for himself. So definitely going to be an interesting episode here.
What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? What age are you now, actually?
24.
Okay, nice. So what would you give your advice to 5 years ago, yourself 5 years ago?
5 years ago to myself. It's always a tough question for me because there's very little I want to change because of how much wisdom you gain by doing bad things or messing up and learning from it.
For sure.
So I really wouldn't be the same if I hadn't done the stuff. I would just say, and I would go back to myself and say, look, it's all going to be all right in the end. Stick to your heart, follow your heart and what you want to do. You know what's good. I know what's right and wrong. And I've realised that as I get older. I know when I'm doing something right and I know when I'm doing something wrong. So I just say to myself, listen to yourself. When you know you're doing something wrong, stop it and start doing the right things.
Nice.
But I wouldn't want to change too much about my past because it's what gives you your stories.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm not sure if you have looked into the butterfly effect. There's a movie with Ashton Kutcher.
I've never
You've never heard about the butterfly effect? Okay, so basically it's like a butterfly, something as small as a butterfly flapping its wings on the other side of the world could trigger off a series of events that affects, has a ripple effect, and it affects so many different things. And so if you did something slightly different, like really the smallest thing different, your life could go off on a completely different trajectory. So when people are like, oh, I would change this, I would look back on this, no, you got to think of the butterfly effect. If you did anything even slightly different, you wouldn't be where you are today.
Exactly.
So that's one that I
might be an estate agent.
Yeah.
That's just a good point, right? Like you got to think, no matter what, you reach the point where you have a particular mindset right now, and you're working on learning, growing, being your best self, and so everything has led you to this point. So maybe even though some things were tough for you, maybe there isn't so much that you would necessarily change, right? Because now you're still at this point of massive growth in a trajectory that's good for you. So I mean, that's definitely a good point.
Hey, not a estate agent.
Yeah.
I just think it's a cool job. I got mad into property in the last year. I got really interested in it. So that's
if you're a good one, if you were selling good houses.
Yeah.
I was in Bournemouth. I was like,
not much going on. Nah. Yo, in Marbella, they're living the dream.
Yeah.
They're honestly just partying every night, selling villas and meeting cool people. Property's big game here.
Dope.
But so I'd say my advice, if I was to talk to my 20-year-old self, it's the same as that. You don't want to not have any regrets and mistakes. But I would say to not be afraid of taking the road less traveled. So I remember when I was in college, I failed college, I dropped out, but for the brief period I was in, I thought this was the only way. I thought I was like, this is what we got to do. We got to finish school, we go to college, we get put in a job that we don't want to do, and then that's it. You have the wife that you hate, shithead kids.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that crazy? I mean, he's acknowledging it, right? But it's like, you do this, you do that, all the things you were told to do, rather than following your gut, your instinct a little bit more. Like, well, do I want to be an estate agent? Do I want to be a finance bro? Like do I want to climb the corporate ladder, or is this other thing calling me? Is this other thing interesting to me? Like, when I get to the end of my life, will I be like, I'm so glad that I stayed in my finance accounting job for 50 years? Or will I be happy that I actually took calculated risks to create an amazing life for myself, right? And I'm not saying I guess that's not necessarily possible if you took the finance accounting route, but if that's something you really, really want to do, I feel like most people don't, though. If I had to guess, it's kind of like, oh, well, a business degree, an accounting degree, that makes a lot of money, but then a lot of people kind of realize later they're like, but then there's this other thing. You get into this idea of, it's something called a sunk cost fallacy. If you haven't heard of it, basically, it's whenever you invest, you thought of this one thing being what needs to work for you your whole life. Like your parents told you need to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, whatever. So you've been invested in that idea for so long that to question it flips your life upside down, basically. Or you spent all that time and money on getting that degree, and then you think, I can't change now, or you're in that job for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you're like, I can't change now. I've invested all this time in it, or even a relationship, right? I know those can be tricky too, right? If there's like marriage and kids, and I'm not encouraging breaking up relationships, right? But like that can happen with friends, family, someone that you're dating in a long-term relationship, things like that. Like, you people, the best example is when you don't have kids already, right? And you're in a situation where you've been dating someone for a while, and you just know, like, it's not gonna work long term, and you're too afraid to cut it off, right? That's one big example there, is like, you know what you need to do, and that would be the best move for you, right? It's the sunk cost fallacy. Like, oh, well, we've been together for 5 or 6 years, like, I might as well stick it out, right? Or like, I can't break it up now, like it's just a fear-based thing rather than going for what you want with your life, basically.
That's it. Maybe you go on holiday, you get 10 days off a year, and then that's it. And at the time, I was like, I want to do something with fitness. How do I do something where I can impact as many people around the world as possible, and also do it on my own time as well? And YouTube fitness was like only in America. And so when I started doing it in Ireland, everyone was like, what? Who the fuck does this guy think he is? Doing bicep curls on the internet. Fucking Billy Big Biceps over here. And so that's what my advice would be to my young self, is trust the process, which I did. And, don't be afraid to take the non-conventional route. You don't have to do the thing that you've been brainwashed into doing. So that's the advice I'd give. And how would you say your mindset has changed over the last couple of years?
But my mindset in the last year has been exploded. My mind's been exploded because I've really seen what is possible for somebody to do if they follow that path less traveled. Because I remember working in sales jobs and trying my absolute best, like really trying hard and getting dialed in and selling stuff and making like maximum 4 or 5 grand in a month. And thinking like, I'm fucking working as hard as I can. Like, there's nothing more I could be doing to make more money. And I just thought, like, it must take so long to get rich or make a decent amount of money. And then when you do something for yourself, when you take that risk, it just comes with all of that reward, and you don't realize.
That's a good point, right? And there's always going to be someone in the comments who has a limiting belief about it, about themselves, about what they're capable of doing, and they're going to say, well, not everybody can start a business, and not everybody can go for what they want, not everybody can leave the country. It's like, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right, because you're looking for confirmation bias to just believe what you already think is true rather than actually going for it, right? You have a fear of failure, and you also have a fear of success. Like, well, what if it goes right? What if everything you ever wanted is on the other side of that calculated risk and making moves to make that sort of thing happen, right? Because there's something that I've heard before that's along the lines of, you can either feed your dreams, your vision, what you want for your life, or you can feed someone else's. And that's a pretty nuts concept to just think about, right? Like kind of like you gave your life away to feed someone else's rather than your own. Just food for thought.
How easy and like something can be when you're on the right path, taking that risk, which was a crazy thing for me to see after thinking, sales is the only way for me in this certain job. Certain sales jobs, you can make a lot of money, but you've got to find the right vehicle. So I'd say to somebody that's kind of stuck around that 3-4 grand mark, you need to find a.
By the way, no judgment on these things. I'm just saying, like it might be worth you considering using one of these kinds of careers, like sales or whatever you're doing, as a launch pad. You can basically leapfrog into something awesome for yourself.
Better vehicle, or do your own thing, because that's where the real money, the real life is at.
And where did you first look to learn about it? I know where I first kind of fell into that. But did you read a book or watch some videos?
What did I read? I read The Rational Male.
Oh yeah, Rollo Tomassi. Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of the best. Yeah, it's a pretty savage one.
Yeah.
Another really good one. It's like, I don't know the name.
By the way, I've said this before in one of the first videos I ever uploaded. That Rollo Tomassi Rational Male book. That one's a good one, and then the Unplugged Alpha by Richard Cooper. Now, what I'll say about those, because they're pretty straightforward. He said pretty savage. What I would recommend to you is, once you soak up some of the information from those books, don't stay stuck in the bitter like red pill rage or red pill like the bitterness mindset. Like, oh, female nature is this way. Oh, like I'm never gonna date again. You know, it's just being a victim, right? I mean, what I would recommend to you is actually learn those concepts, understand and navigate dating, so you can find an amazing woman to start a family with one day. Assuming that's something you're interested in, I think a lot of guys are if they kind of drop the ego about like wanting to get dating handled and then being a playboy and blah blah blah, right? Like I think at the end of the day, like they would probably love to have like a great wife and kids, or at least a great long-term relationship and kids. You know, whether marriage is involved or not is another conversation. But that's what I always say that about those books because it's useful information. Just don't stay like stewing and bitter your whole life, right? Because you're gonna regret it later.
Book. It's by Richard Cooper.
Alpha
20 Red Flags or the Rational Male.
No, it's
that's
something
the,
Alpha something.
Yeah.
I know the book.
Yeah. He's awesome
He's
as well.
great, that's a great book. Yeah, Richard Cooper's really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna get him on the podcast.
I had a mentor, like not paid for or anything.
Yeah,
just a friend, a much older friend who I met online actually through an entrepreneur group when I was first getting before I went out to Thailand and I'd quit my job and left my girlfriend. I ended up speaking to this guy David in the States, Big G.
Nice.
Big G David, humongous beard. and we just started chatting, and obviously if you're chatting with guys, a lot of conversation does go to women. And I was fairly blue-pilled at the time, very more traditional, and very much indoctrinated into a system.
Blue pill just basically means like pretty like unaware or naive when it comes to anything really, like how society, the government, the school system works. With this topic, right? Like women, like being naive towards women and female nature, right? So this is a good thing to remember.
From the UK.
Yeah.
And I started speaking to David and figuring out some of the stuff he was doing with girls and like had seen multiple girls and all this different things and some of the things he was pulling off. And he started teaching me about it and talking to me about it and telling me how the world really works when it comes to women and what they actually want. And he's about, I think he's 36, 37, and I was 22. So he had a lot more experience than me. So he was the guy that got me into it. I started testing. I was like, shit, this stuff works.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was in like a 6-year relationship before my current relationship, right? And so we had a bad breakup and like, there's a lot of shit on her phone that I came across and all this, and it red-pilled me. It snapped me out of it, okay? And it was great in hindsight, like we were like 24, 25, so we broke up, went our separate ways. But so I was like, I don't know how to even speak to girls. I don't even know how to date.
And in that context, getting red-pilled is like getting smacked across the face with like really brutal realities when it comes to like something that's going on with a woman. Like you see that she's talking to other guys while she's dating you, right? And you're in a relationship, like a committed one, or you're married, like them cheating, like these sorts of things, right? Because of things called like hypergamy, which is basically them always looking for their best option. And of course there's good women, right? Like do not get this twisted, because again, like you don't stay stuck in the bitter red pill. You use the knowledge for what it's worth so that you can find the best option for you, right? So just remember that.
So I started watching like a lot of YouTube, like Real Social Dynamics and RSD and all these guys. And just the underlying message was just to be more confident, and is to work on yourself. And it goes, when you have got your life set up, well then now you can go on dates. Now the girls will chase you.
Exactly.
Right, so just put yourself in a position where you're not chasing around looking desperate.
Yeah.
Whereas that your life is so sick, people want to get involved. So that was like the biggest date.
And by the way, I was having a conversation with a guy the other day about this, because some guys seem to have the wrong idea about when you get into that situation. Like you work on everything and then all of a sudden dating is going to be easy. But you have to understand dating dynamics, female nature, and those things as well. So you have to be dating while you're building those other things up. You can't put it off because you're going to be naive when you're buff and shredded and really wealthy financially and you don't know what you're doing with women, right? It's like throwing like a ball of fire around, like, I don't know what to do here. And a lot of guys get into messy situations like divorces, child support, etc., because they didn't know what they were doing with women, right? So that's a really important thing to remember, because one thing about that, right, is it's more masculine for women to approach you. So you're in your feminine by relying on something called choosing signals. A lot of guys like to strictly rely on those. It's like, oh well, she's giving me signs, right? Like she looked at me again. She looked down. Oh, it's on. Like I'm gonna go talk to her, right? Like that's good. Don't get me wrong. Like those things are good because like obviously you've been doing some work. She's attracted to you. She's interested. Maybe she wants you to come over, right? But I think a lot of guys are like kind of like babying themselves around it, right? Like they're too strict. Like, oh, I need the choosing signal in order to approach. But you might find, what I would recommend you do is if you don't notice it or you don't get it, just go up and find out, right? Just stop her real quick. Like, hey, I just noticed you over here. You seemed interesting, so I had to stop and come say hi. What's your name, right? And then, maybe she'll ask you your name back, right? Good sign if she does that. But basically, what I'm saying is, either way, just pick up your balls and go and talk to her, right? Like I'm saying it's feminine if you don't do that. Just go for what you want. Be a savage, right? Because you're going to find out she can still tell you she's not interested, right? It's easy. I don't think a lot of guys overthink it and make it too difficult on themselves.
Thing I learned.
And a lot of it comes down to, have you read Dan Bilzerian's book, The Setup?
I've read bits of it. I've yet to read the full thing.
I love that book. But
I think Dan's awesome.
Dan is a
He's a legend.
Dan is a
I hate when people say they don't like him. I've actually got loads of people that have met him and gone to his parties and says he's the nice guy ever.
Yeah, I've seen basically everything Dan's put out, all his podcasts and everything.
Me too,
he seems like a down-to-earth G, and his book's amazing.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to read it.
He basically talks about it. It's all about the setup. So when you set up your life in the right way, when you have the villa in Marbella, and you're going out and doing the cool stuff, and people find you on the internet, and you've got some money, and you're in shape, and then he talks a lot about if you want to close the deal, you need to have everything set up in a way where it's not difficult. So there'll be guys that stay in a hotel an hour away from the club.
Yeah.
And they try and get a couple of girls back that they've met. And they say, oh, where's your hotel? It's here. No, not going.
Yeah.
Compared to the guy that has the hotel 5 minutes across the road, bang, he gets the two girls. Oh, it's just over here. It's just 5 minutes away.
Suite upstairs.
And the girls, it's a suite upstairs. It's in the back. Whatever. The setup is so important when it comes to women, especially if you're in a young stage of partying. You want to just see women casually. You need to make sure you've got the setup correct. Otherwise, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly.
Like Dan talks about when he's younger, he used to go to this lake house that I think is one of his dad's friends had, and they go to this lake house, and him and his buddy would be out on the boat, and they pull up to other lake houses around the dock and be like, oh, do you want to go on the wakeboards with the girls? And they've got an activity to do.
Yes.
And then after they'd be like, oh, do you want to come have a barbecue at our place? And before you know it, they're back and they're into you because the setup was so easy.
Exactly. And so one of the easiest places that I've pulled when I was single, I've gone there so many times, is Las Vegas. And the reason for that is because every single hotel or nightclub, every nightclub's in a hotel, and every hotel has a nightclub. Have you ever been to Vegas?
I've never been to
Vegas.
Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Get me to Vegas, baby.
Yeah, we're going.
Yeah.
Oh, but so I mean, let's say you're in Omnia or Caesar's Palace, whatever it is. All the big nightclubs are, you can probably picture Las Vegas, you know what it looks like. They're all just on the bottom floor of the hotel. So it's like, whatever you're staying, you're literally just key card, bang, and you've resumed the night afterwards.
Fantastic. Out for seconds and firsts.
Yeah, exactly. oh, 1 minute of glory. But that's so interesting about, logistics, how that's kind of one of the biggest factors. And so we've also got a video that I had a good look at today, and it was titled, How to Go from a 2 to a 10. How a guy can do that. Looks maxing.
Yeah, I think it's 2 to a 9 or something.
Something like that. Something like that, right? So tell me, right, how does a guy go up a few levels, and what is looks maxing?
Looks maxing is when you change the way that you look. You do everything in your power to become the best person that you could possibly be. So if you are currently sitting there...
He might say something about this, but a lot of guys, they have this sob cry fest about oh, it's just genetics, bro. That's easy for you to say coming from a Chad, right? And it's bro, a lot of these guys were skinny, really skinny or fat before, and they went to the gym, just like you can go to the gym, right? So it's not taking accountability for the things that they can control, right? Okay, maybe you're shorter, right? You can't really control that. But what you can control, that's what you should focus on, right? The gym, maybe your skincare, right? If you got some acne or some things like that, maybe your teeth, if you can do anything to, if you can whiten them, even if you can't get braces or afford whitening, actually going in to get whitening, there's the whitening strips you can put on, right? Taking care of yourself, those things, your beard, right? Mine's not the best right now, but actually lining it up, right? Lining up here, right? Making sure it's not too long, not too short, because girls kind of like somewhere in between it's called like 10-day stubble, basically. So this is a little bit longer than that, but they like between like the 5 o'clock shadow look, it's like a little bit of stubble and then like a shorter beard. It's pretty common that girls are pretty into. And also, getting a haircut that you can look up like what your face shape is, like oval, diamond, triangle, etc., right? And figure out like what is a good haircut for your face shape, because a lot of guys are stubborn around that too. Like for some reason they're like, oh, well, I'm not willing to get rid of my red hair. Like would they dye their hair red, right? It's something or like naturally redheaded, or I'm not willing to cut my super long hair. And for some guys, they can pull the long hair off. Not everybody's Jason Momoa or like the Thor, right? But what I'm saying, obviously, right, is that there are some things that you can control. So to focus on those, and I mean, even things like your style, right? Like having just a plain, like not a bunch of logos, not too many crazy patterns, right? Like just like some clean white shoes, right? Like, maybe some jeans that fit you well, clothes that fit you well, of course. This shirt is plain, right? Nothing crazy on it. Pretty neutral colors. Just things like that, right? Like, because not like being too crazy, no graphic tees, like there's ways that you can level up and be more appealing. And they're simple too, right? I mean, again, clean t-shirt. So easy. And you can go, pick one of those up for pretty cheap rather than your Balenciaga t-shirt that's unnecessarily priced, let's say. But let's keep going.
There, and you're addicted to video games, and you've got no muscle on you, and you don't have a job, and you've got very little self-respect, and you're watching porn all the time, you're probably around a 2 or a 3, depending on the way that you look. If you've never done any self-development, you can improve those numbers massively if you just start hitting the gym, you sort your skin out, you sort your hair out, you get a stylist, or you go and speak to someone. So my friend Dario, he actually said, once you've got a little bit of money, go and speak to one of the store assistants in a shop but we shop a lot of Boss now. Boss are really doing some good stuff.
Really, yeah.
And
I love Massimo Dutti at the moment. I don't know how you pronounce that.
I've not been in there.
Oh man, there's one.
Oh no, I have. Yeah. I have. There's one in Marbella.
Yes. Oh man, it's beside Zara. It's quality.
Perfect and good prices.
Oh yeah, exactly. You don't even need a shop designer. Like obviously it's great if you do, but there's a lot of good options.
There's a lot of options, but go and speak to somebody that knows style and fashion. Find somebody on the internet that.
By the way, a good starter place, like you don't need to spend a bunch of money on clothes either. Like H&M is a pretty popular one, like you can find like across the world, and they're pretty like cheap prices. I mean, you can even find good stuff in like Target, like Walmart. Again, right, plain and well fitted, simple, right? Like you can say the style is for later, because honestly, like a lot of this stuff is like pretty simple. Like even the shirts that they're wearing, no logos, right? Like nice, decent button down, fits them well, simple. You don't need the Rolex. You don't need the Ray-Bans, right? like those things, maybe later, right? But just like focus on the basics.
Want to replicate their style, somebody that does well, and looks good, and then go into the store and say, look, I want to look like this guy. What can you recommend? Dress me up, get yourself sorted, wear a nice cologne. I mean, there's so much you can do. If you're currently at 2 or 3 and you start training and you learn how to fight and you start a business or you start working a job, and you have all this self-confidence, it doesn't really matter if you're ugly, because ugly guys get pussy.
Oh yeah,
like seriously. Girls don't care that much. If you're built and you're a bit ugly and you make money and you're dressed well, and you smell good and you're well groomed, like there's nothing you can't really do.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, half the girls I date are taller than me.
exactly. A lot of guys on that part of the internet, a lot of guys will be like, well, I'm sure like, it's never going to happen for me. Just fuck it. There's nothing you fucking do about it.
Yeah.
You just got to go out there, just go and get it.
90% of course.
And again, right, like there's a lot of short guys that are going after it anyways, right? Like they put their effort into those things that they can control, and it's working for them, right? They've got such a high level of confidence, because they've been working on, their fitness, their career, et cetera, and so they feel good, right? And so like those objections, like they're not worried about a girl's reactions, right? They're detached from the outcome. So that's really important to remember. And then just also not being afraid of approaching girls, right? Like I think a lot of guys have like a big fear around that. And, there's a lot of guys, for example, there's a guy who may be working on some of those things, so he's not like higher on that number scale like they were talking about. But if that guy puts himself in more social situations, like instead of working remotely at home all day, sometimes like he spends some time at home, then other times working remotely in a cafe, right? Or a gym that's more popular rather than a private gym, right? With nobody around, like just a bunch of bodybuilder guys, like seeing where you can start to put yourself in environments where you can meet more women. That guy is going to do a lot more better, regardless of his looks, right? But again, you should be working on these things like finances, your whole situation, and versus the guy who's doing well, looks good. Maybe he looks like a Chad, but he's like really shy, or he like works remote and never goes out. Like there's a clear reason why he's not meeting women, or even meeting women that are a good fit for him, right? Like because you could say you want a long-term relationship and you're going to the club. Who could have guessed why that's not working out for you, right? But like, or you could just be not going out at all, and it's like, okay, well, it's very clear why you're not meeting women, right? It's easy. I mean, I think there's a lot of overthinking going on around it.
That I see out there, a lot of them are BS, all right? So the funniest thing is, it's guys claiming to be an expert on a topic and they make money off that topic, but the only thing they're actually making money off is the course they're selling about the topic. It's so funny. They're not actually good at that. So how do we know your course is legit?
Well, my course is run by a guy, so I totally agree with you. And to be transparent, I make my money from my courses. So before this, I did sales, but I didn't make a huge amount of my money from it. So my money has come from online business and course sales.
But that's what it's about. So it's okay. I'm talking about crypto guys who've never made any money in crypto, and they're selling courses about crypto.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Ours, I knew that although I've done sales for a long time, I've not worked enough online sales jobs, and I've not done the money that I wanted to do. So we hired a guy specifically to put inside there. He runs a Discord. He does a weekly call with everyone. He built out half the course. I built out the other half of the course. In terms of the mindset and the fitness stuff, like I've done that. I've got receipts on that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I got receipts on the personal branding as well.
Yeah.
So it's only that bit in the middle, and then the rest is a network. So you just have to trust that the network is good. Yeah. And we've got testimonials and things, and we seriously changed people's lives. Like I could show you some testimonials.
That's awesome.
Fucking changed people's lives.
And by the way, I mean, like, that's a good point too, right? Like if let's say maybe you are going to make a course like that, like because he's got the brand for it, right? So maybe if he isn't the best at that thing he's trying to start a course on, that's smart, honestly. Like because he can utilize the brand, and then he can hire someone who's really good at the thing, right? Like sales or whatever it is, drop shipping, whatever you're interested in, right? Like because then you can combine your forces, right? It's like the Power Rangers, right? Or Dragon Ball Z, right? I loved watching that as a kid, like when they would fuse together. Goku and Vegeta, was it Trunks and Goten, right? Obviously, right, like, what I'm saying is combine your forces, and even if you're not the best at that thing, you can still start one of these courses or something, or coaching, right? If you team up with someone who's good at it, and if you've got the branding down, I mean, that's a pretty dynamic duo. Like, I mean, one thing, this is a little bit of a side point, right? But like, I've heard a lot of people tell me that they regret their decisions around their business partner because they were too similar. Now you might be thinking, what? That's weird. Like, that's crazy. Like, that would be good, right? Like, they're both like similar, same drive, same interest. They have the same skill sets. They can just build each other up, right? Well, a lot of them say that it was more helpful to find someone who, shared similar values, of course, but had a sort of an alternate skill set. So, like, they were strong in things the other guy was weak in. So they filled in the gaps for each other rather than both being good at the same thing. They both could hold up both sides, right? Where the weak points were, they filled it up. And so that's like this thing, right? Like, him hiring someone that's good at that, and then him being the face, the branding, because he's good at the branding, right? So, I mean, I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, I've even actually seen comments. I think one of the best ways to look out for if something's legit or not is, of course, reviews and testimonials. Yeah. But even, like, I've seen your comments on YouTube and everything, and they're awesome. You know, you can just tell that you're doing a great job. So yeah, fair play on that.
Awesome.
And then so when it comes to, I know it's a buzzword recently, but it summarizes it well. Escaping the matrix, living off the grid. You know, you're in Thailand, you're in Marbella here. What are some of the first steps you need to make to live a life of freedom?
You've got to get control of your income. That's the first thing. So if you can build out an offer and have access to your own Stripe and making your own money coming into your bank and not relying on someone to pay you, that's very, very good. I would say if you can't do that, just having someone reliable to pay you in online sales, for example, that you know that money's coming in. And then you need to take yourself out of banking in one country. So many people are banked in one country, which is fucking awful. Like you didn't realize how unstable that whole system is. So you need to get yourself, I would recommend, if you're making over 10 grand a month or maybe 20 grand a month and you're not currently banking out of Dubai, that could be a real good move for you. If you're not interested in living in the UK for more than 90 days a year, go bank in Dubai. Also, there's many countries around the world that you can go to and you can pay a certain amount of money to open bank accounts. So you go and open bank accounts around the world.
What are some good ones of them?
Well, Thailand's pretty good.
I've actually heard that.
Thailand's pretty good for banking. You can go there, get the right visas, do it the right way, open a bank account. Thailand's an amazing place to live. You can split your time between Thailand and Dubai. That's what I do.
Nice.
So you can bank in both places. You can keep your home banks as well, your home credit cards.
Keep a little bit.
Keep a little bit there. Keep a little bit there. And then there's a couple other places. These are the only places I bank at the moment. So I can't tell you much about any more, but I'm planning.
I know what you mean. And so how did you end up in Thailand, of all places?
Thailand, that came from the movie The Beach.
And absolutely one of my favorite movies ever. So I'll actually tell you this, right? Do you know in Phi Phi Island? So I don't know if it's still there. Exactly where it's filmed. So I was there at the time, right? And I was with like a group of friends from school. I was very young. I was maybe 19, 20. Do you know, I think it's called the Banana Bar. It's like an upstairs bar. I don't know if you can still go there.
I've never been there yet.
Oh, you've never been?
I've never been to Marbella yet.
Oh, what? Oh, no, but you know Phi Phi Island.
I've not been to Phi Phi.
Oh, wait, that's amazing, right? I don't know if it's Fifi or Phi Phi. Phi Phi sounds kind of gross, but right. So there's this bar, and it's called the Banana Bar, and you have to climb up a winding stairs to get to it, and it's like on a rooftop. It overlooks the whole town, and you can buy like weed over the counter. I'm not big into weed at the time.
Me neither.
Yeah, I think we'll go into that. I think it rots the brain, but anyways, at the time, I would pro legalize it. You know, I don't think it's worse. I think alcohol's worse, but I'm not into it myself. Anyways, so you go up. Everyone's smoking. It's a nice atmosphere. You can get really nice food, burritos. There's hammocks everywhere, and they have a huge projector. And I remember I went up there and they were playing The Beach. And that's the first time I ever watched that movie.
Really?
Was in that setting.
My God.
So it was like you could see Maya Bay from the roof.
Oh my.
So I fell in, I was with all my friends, we're having a few beers, watching the beach.
You're basically living the movie
exactly,
at the same time.
And we were like, I was broke, and we were like, I was wearing like the worst clothes. And it was like, I'll never forget, that's the first time I watched it. So I fell in love with that movie. So a little side story, but go on.
Amazing. So I had the same experience, but just from my bedroom when I was 14 years old. I'm watching that in my bedroom thinking, what am I stuck here doing this? And I was only 14 at the time, so there's not much I could do about it. But it remained in my mind, and I started training Muay Thai because it was a part of MMA. And a great Muay Thai instructor. I started looking online these Muay Thai camps, and I was just fascinated. I made a dream board. I had a girlfriend at the time, long-term girlfriend. We had an apartment together. I had an office in there. I made a dream board in my apartment. I had all these trees.
See, this has come up a few times, right, in other videos, but a dream board or a vision board, right? Like, and these things start to come true, like unfold over time too. If you you want it bad enough, basically.
On it, and different villas in Thailand and Muay Thai camps and stuff. I remember my girlfriend coming in. What's that? It's my dream.
Planning your great escape
for the future. It's for far in the future.
She's like, where am I on the dream board?
I don't want to do that.
So your dream, bitch.
It's my dream.
My dream board.
What's that fighting thing on there? No, she was all right, to be fair. She's not a bad girl. But anyway, I had this dream board, and then it just got more and more real for me, and I started saving money at the same time whilst I was working sales. I always had a bit of money going away into a pot, and I got to about 10 grand, and I was like, wow, I could genuinely move there now. If I just give everything up, I could just go. And then I did. I just one day I got home and I broke up with my girlfriend, which was sad at the time because there wasn't anything particularly wrong. But I just knew I had to go and do more with my life. And I went and quit my job. That was amazing. That was the best feeling.
Not fired. You quit this time.
I quit the job. I said, guys, I'm off. But they were lovely about it as well. They weren't bad people at all. They were really, really happy for me.
Yeah, I actually had the same experience. So I've been fired from a load of jobs, but the last one, or one of them, it was kind of, because I was working 2 jobs at the time, it's kind of muddled. There was one job that I quit, and it was like a 9 to 6 office job. And the owner of the company, I was really young. I was like 22. The owner of the company was like, yeah, well, you're not doing much around here anyway, so you're just like, go do your thing.
At least we don't have to fire you.
Yeah, exactly, But they were cool about it. And then so you just moved to Thailand. Which part?
I moved straight, so I had to, it was around COVID time, so I had to jump through a few hoops. I had to do a quarantine in Bangkok. Oh, man. Did a quarantine in Bangkok, met these 2 French twins downstairs. Unfortunately, they weren't female. Okay,
I was about to say, like, French twins. That sounds pretty hot.
Story. They weren't female, but they were really nice guys, and we travelled together for a bit. So
Awesome, guys. Well, I mean, obviously, like a very interesting life path there. This is it's supposed to be inspiring for you guys, right? Like, obviously, this sort of thing is doable. And again, like even Rob, the Irish guy at the end, was talking about like he was working, 2 jobs basically around when he made the leap for himself, right? So again, right, like sometimes that's a period that you have to go through, and then finally making the leap, right? Like finally at some point knowing when you're going to stop holding yourself back and like, all right, I built the runway, I did the 1 job, the 2 jobs, whatever, and now we're going to make it happen. And it might seem scary, but there's a reason. What I want you to do is reframe that, right? Instead of it being scary, instead of it making you nervous, it makes you excited. It's a positive reframe, right? So like, like it's like approaching that girl, like, going for this thing, that job, that moving to this country. Oh, it's scary, but like, really, is it? Because what's the worst thing that can happen, right? You have to move back home for a little bit, and then you can go back again, right? Maybe the girl rejects you, but really, it's not that big of a deal, right? I mean, there's so many women in the world, like, the job, right? I mean, there's always another job, right? It's like the world is abundant. What I'm trying to tell you guys is get excited. Get excited. And if this is the kind of thing you're interested in, obviously I'm interested in it because I'm doing it. I mean, Jack was one of many inspirations for me to move out. So, yeah, I mean, I hope that this little set of videos was helpful for you in some way to start getting the brain, like the gears turning on how you can start making some moves to live the life that you really want. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. You got this, bro.